Andrew, is this what you were expecting from the ONS this morning?
I think that the recession seemed very likely at this point. You have high inflation and obviously very high energy costs, and that's been feeding through the economy for a little while, so we should have expected that the economy would be contracting. If anything, 0.2% is pretty mild at this stage.
And yet, probably the most damaging aspect of what the Bank of England forecast a couple of weeks ago now was the length of this recession. Probably quite shallow, but very, very long. And it seems that the United Kingdom government has abandoned many of the pro-growth measures that the Truss administration put forward, not just the tax cuts, but the supply-side reform packages as well. Is there any hope for the future, really, when it comes to getting out of this recession, curtailing this recession to be as short as it possibly could be?
Yes, I don't think one should take those particular Bank of England projections all that literally. I think one of the things that they were indicating there was that was the very long recession you would get if interest rates rose in the way that markets were expecting them to do. But the Bank of England was trying to signal that interest rates aren't going to go up nearly as high as markets are anticipating. So I think that you should expect that the recession, there'll be a nasty recession, but I don't think it's going to go anything as long as the Bank of England indicates, because they just won't raise interest rates that high. So inflation will come down quicker. In terms of looking further ahead, well, there's two kinds of things I think to think about there. One is growth type of measures, and the other is the fiscal consolidation that we're about to have from Hunt and Sunak in a couple of weeks. So there's a link between these three things. Normally, you would say the time for doing a fiscal consolidation would be at least after your recession was complete, if not once the recovery was well underway. So your viewers may remember that in 2010, there was a bit of a debate about whether even 2010 was too early to start for having a major fiscal consolidation.
And of course, the economy was growing in 2010.
That's right, but the economy was already growing in 2010. So people were saying, well, although it's been growing for a year, that's not enough because we should be able to get ourselves all the way back to recovery before we do things. On this occasion, people are talking about having significant tax rises right during the recession, which is very, very unusual as an idea. So I think that the right time for scheduling tax rises and spending cuts, and we will need some of those looking further ahead. We should be out a year or 2 years' time. I think that some of the discussions about having massive tax rises next April are all a little bit unnecessary. And one reason they're unnecessary is because the fiscal situation, it's awkward, but it isn't that bad. I mean, we're talking about, there's talk of a black hole of something of the order of 2% of GDP, even if you believe in that particular black hole. Well, if you went back to 2010, the structural deficit was about 8.8% of GDP, well over 4 times as big. So we're talking about kind of ordinary levels of awkward fiscal consolidation to need to do on this occasion. I think that there's quite a bit of unnecessary pessimism about the longer term growth outlook for the economy as well. I think there are quite a few reasons to suppose that growth looking further ahead will be faster than it's been over the past 12 years or so. And if your growth is faster, then you don't need to have as much tax rises and spending cuts, because the growing economy will give you extra tax revenues. And reasons to think that things might be a little bit faster would include things like, I think that we've been stuck because of the Great Recession by having extremely low interest rates and debt kept in place. There were very good reasons why we didn't allow natural adjustments at the time, but the increased inflation and higher interest rates should shock us out of some of our Great Recession malaise. We've had a little bit of a drag on the economy whilst we adjusted to leaving the European Union. So there's been some Brexit adjustment costs. I think those are more than half done, and that gives us a chance to get into some of the gain phase. We won't hopefully have the kind of in and outs that we had for COVID, which has been very disruptive for the economy.
So